So there is a conversation that I end up getting into quite often with other writers, just, in the course of chatting about some of our frustrations. And that is how harsh people are on our female characters. The dread over how the female main character in our book is going to be judged. It often feels like no matter what we do, people don't like the female protagonist of a book. And that can really freeze you up. It's not that male characters don't receive criticism. I mean, certainly no one is immune, but it really does feel like it's worse for the female protagonist. It does kind of feel like she can do no right sometimes. It's like no matter what we do, no matter how we try to change her, there's always something a little wrong with her in the eyes of readers. So what's up with that, readers? Why are you so mean to the ladies? And that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you are new here, friends, my name is Lydia Foxglove, and I'm a fantasy author. I've been a full-time creative since 2009 and have written a lot of books with a lot of female protagonists. And I've definitely felt that sense when I'm looking at my female characters, especially like when I'm first planning her out and then when I'm editing her scenes. I often feel like, people aren't going to like this, people aren't going to like that, this is going to get bad reviews. I didn't really think about this so much at first. I kind of figured that if I liked my female characters, which was already a whole other struggle for me, in my early years of writing, I really only connected very well with the male characters, which is a fairly common experience I'm going to talk about in some other upcoming videos. But once I got to the point where, like, if I, with my struggles with writing female characters, like my female character, she must be pretty awesome, right? And then I started getting reviews, and some of the complaints I would get just left me scratching my head a bit. But no matter what I wrote, those kind of complaints kept coming. Sometimes even contradictory complaints for the same character. Some of the most common complaints that I have gotten and my writer friends have gotten are, of course, too stupid to live. We've all probably felt a character is too stupid to live. I don't think I write a lot of these types of characters, but I do sometimes feel like, although I will write a character that's intelligent as a whole and isn't usually criticized as being an overall too stupid to live character, that readers are sometimes looking for the one moment of stupidity that they can complain about in a review. There's also the strong female character, the generic strong female character that's kind of ho-hum. She is criticized as just being too tough, too strong, too stereotypical, not having enough depth, but just being strong for the sake of being strong. There's the character that is too passive, too gentle. She's maybe a little too accepting of her feminine role or something like that. This is one I've definitely gotten because I tend to be like a person. Well, I don't tend to be. I am a person who is kind of like an anxiety-ridden people pleaser who's shy and socially anxious. And sometimes I want to write characters that are the opposite of me. Sometimes I want to write a character that I kind of identify with. So sometimes I've written characters that start out very shy and anxious, and people don't like that. People want her to be strong right off the bat, but not too strong because then she's a strong female character. One of the ones I've probably gotten the most is just, she's a bitch, she's unlikable, something along those lines. There's something off-putting or just not likable enough about her. And I encounter this a lot when female characters have a side that's a little bit prickly. Maybe they don't entirely trust people. Maybe they have a sense of humor that's a little sarcastic. Maybe they're a little judgmental of people when they first meet them, which ties into the not trusting people thing. There's just something about them that doesn't quite get along with other people or isn't entirely enthusiastic about the story role they've been thrust into. Ironically, at one point I wrote a book about a character who was so prickly that she was nicknamed Prickly by a couple other characters in the book. And I felt like people actually liked her. She was over the top enough that people seemed to realize that she was going to go through a growth arc. But I've gotten more criticism of characters like Livonia and the Potion Dealers. Certain people have been rubbed the wrong way by her, and I think it's because she's not She's a little complicated. She's not like what you would call a sweetheart. I don't think of her as being like mean or prickly though. I just think she's like not entirely trusting and like goes through a lot of thought process about the things that are going on. She's not always like sure if she wants to be involved in this or if she likes this person. She's not like going to be nice just for the sake of being nice. And I think some people don't like that. Another one I've gotten fairly often with my female protagonists is that they're annoying, spoiled, bratty. I really love the like kind of diva character, like the spoiled princess, the girl who's needs to be taken down just a peg, but she has a heart of gold, or at least a heart of like, she's kind at heart, but she's just used to having her needs taken care of, or she thinks rather highly of herself and expects to become a famous pop star, you know, depending on the context of the book. There's a certain level of like, I'm pretty awesome. Some people don't like that either. It can come across as too entitled. But personally, I love the diva with a heart of gold trope, so I've written it a few times. Now, I feel like all of these characters that I've written as women have had equivalents on the male side of things, but they aren't criticized as harshly. I would have to go through, like, statistically all of my reviews and probably all of other people's reviews, or, you know, at least get a sample to see if, like, to what statistical level do we judge women more than men? But I think that a lot of us just feel that this is a thing that happens when we don't need science to tell us so. What do readers want? Well, I can tell you that I have had a book series where I got very few complaints about the female lead. There was one instance where I was like, it seems like people pretty much like this girl. That was Helena in my Paranormal House Flipper series. And that was like a lighthearted paranormal rom-com. And Helena was in her late 20s. She was not super young, had a little bit of maturity and life experience. She's from a magical branch of the Royal Habsburg family and has a very rich family, but she didn't want to be involved in any of that sort of princessy life and decided to flip magical houses for a living so that she could be independent and make her own decisions. So she's very competent, but despite that, she's still somewhat feminine. She's not like an overly strong or harsh kind of character. There's a bit of a just likable girl next door energy to Helena. She also has a good sense of humor, but in a very like kind of standard rom-com-y chick litty way that's a little bit self-deprecating, good banter with the guys in the book, you know, like she's just a little bit of everything you would want and not too much of anything. So, okay, great. There's a female character that most people seem to agree that they like. So I guess I should just write 100 Helenas in different variations and call it a day. But of course, this would be extremely boring, and also characters to me don't work like that. I don't get to control what the characters show up as. They just show up in my head and are what they are, and I can nudge them to be a little more this or a little more that, but I don't get to control who they are. I do think there are a fair amount of readers that just like a good all-around girl who, she's a little bit funny, she's a little bit strong, she's a little bit girly, she's a little bit of everything. And they would be happy just reading the same type of character over and over. But there's also a lot of readers that would get bored if we did this. This is kind of the age-old problem with all writing, that there's a certain group of readers that wants the same formula over and over again and are very outspoken if they don't get it. And there's another group of readers that want different things, but they also might be a little more particular and discerning and more likely to delve critically into a book. So you can get bad reviews from both these kind of readers at the same time. I did wonder, are there particular reasons why female characters get more hate than male characters? I mean, besides misogyny, obviously. Internalized misogyny can certainly be a thing that, you know, if you've ever puzzled over disliking a female politician, and you've tried to decide, do I not like her because I just don't like her as a person, or is there an element of internalized misogyny operating here? I know I've gone through that thought process before when I've had to choose between like a primary vote or something. And I don't always know 100% for sure, because of course I'm influenced by outside messages and culture. Like, it bombards you your whole life. No one is immune to a certain level of influence from culture. But I do think that even outside of this, there might be a few reasons why people are harsher on female main characters. One reason is that there is a certain group of readers who want wish fulfillment in their fiction. And there are more female readers at the moment than there are male readers. So even outside of romance, even bleeding into some fantasy novels and other genre fiction, you get a certain amount of readers that want to put themselves in the shoes of the female main character. But of course, this is definitely the strongest with romance. And a lot of times these readers seem to want either someone who's just kind of a blank slate, doesn't have a whole lot of personality, but what there isn't so strong that they can't just kind of mesh themselves onto her. Or they want a character that is the strong female character, the snarky badass, because then there's that level of like imagining yourself as this girl who's so tough she can do anything, but then she meets the man who can melt her heart. Men certainly have the equivalent of this as well. Everybody likes a moment where they like to imagine themselves as someone stronger than they actually are, or wittier than they actually are, or what have you. I'm not immune to it either. I don't tend to be as attracted to the strong character, but I do like a character that's like very clever and also like very charming. I'm more able to relate to that because I'm not strong at all, but I like to think I'm at least slightly charming. So I like to imagine like, well, what if I was just like super charming? Another reason that people might like the female main character less is that a lot of books tend to be told completely or mostly from the female character's point of view, especially as we see the rise of first-person point of view rather than third person. In first person, you really don't have any distance to show what this character is like outside of what's going on in their own head. But in a close third person, you also don't get a lot of space. And it can be hard to show the likable sides of a character sometimes when you're in their head too much. If you're writing them even slightly realistically, most of us have conflicted feelings about how we are ourselves. And we also, like, even if a character does acknowledge some of their own positive traits, you don't want them to say it that much, because that would sound kind of arrogant if they were like, oh, I'm really awesome and charming and kind and stuff. But if you're writing about, like, say, the male lead, she can notice things about him that play up his strength. You don't quite get that same opportunity when you're in the point of view of that character. So if you're talking about books that are mostly written from female point of view, and a lot of the current big blockbuster books are written primarily from the female point of view, well, it's a different perspective that can sometimes be difficult. Also, if most readers are female, then we have a different kind of relationship with the female main character than we do with the male lead. I think a lot of people want the female main character in a book, if they don't want it to be a proxy for themselves, they want to feel maybe like they would hang out with this person, because you essentially are. As you're reading the book and spending a bunch of time in their head, you kind of are hanging out with this person. So maybe you don't want to have a friend who's a diva or really passive or too stupid to live. I definitely don't want a friend who's too stupid to live. I think that's one reason a character like Helena was likable to a lot of readers, because she's just kind of a good all-around girl who could probably be a lot of people's friend. She doesn't have a lot of traits that would rub you the wrong way. Like, you probably haven't had a friend that reminds you of Helena that you're like, oh God, I did not get along with her. On the other hand, some of my more difficult female characters might remind you of an annoying person that you knew at some point. So we can be a little more judgmental, a little more impatient with this character's growth arc if we just feel like, I don't want to be friends with this person. And another reason I think can be a little underrated is we don't have as many examples of really awesome women in fiction to draw from as we do men. This is another video that I've been wanting to work on in the future about how men are just, they have more variety in the types of characters that they have been traditionally. And we're kind of finally breaking out of that. in recent years, but we're nowhere near parity. And every character is usually based to a certain extent on a character that has come before. Most of the favorite characters that I have written started with the seed of a different character I liked in a different story, where I liked that character so much that I kind of wanted to steal them. And I thought about, like, how can I bring the things about this character that I like into my world and make them a new character? I'm sure I'm not the only one who does this. And if you're inspired by other works of fiction and there are simply more cool, likable men throughout the history of all of fiction than women, then it gets a little like you have to break new ground imagining this really awesome lady. That is one of the reasons I think I struggled so much to write female protagonists early on in my writing journey and writing career, because like as a kid, as a teen, I didn't have a lot to draw on. It was hard for me to envision what like the type of character I liked would look like in a woman. So I just wrote men instead. I didn't feel like I really had female characters figured out until I was in my mid-30s. And by then, I guess I had contemplated on the topic enough to like get there, and read enough like decent novels with female characters and had enough female friends to kind of pluck from, but it can be a real problem. So I do think there are some valid reasons why it can be more difficult to get the reader on board with a female character. But I do have like a useless minor plea to readers. Please be gentle on our female main characters. Most of us are really trying, but we want to write growth arcs. We want to write complicated women. We want to write different types of women. Please give these ladies a chance. For just the cost of a $3.99 ebook, you can sponsor a starving diva. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Are you a writer who has struggled with readers seeming like they're a little more harsh on your female characters? Is it something you worry over if you haven't published your first book yet because you've noticed this pattern with other books? Are you a reader with complicated feelings about female characters? Is there something that you think writers could be doing better? And I'm talking from the perspective of women writing women for mostly women here, but I would also like men writing women is a whole other topic. And if my male viewers have any thoughts on your own struggles with writing female characters, I would love to hear that too. I find this whole topic to be very interesting, and this is probably not the last video I will do on gender dynamics among writers and their characters and their readers. So I'd love to know all your thoughts. If you'd like more from me, my members get 2 bonus videos per month voted on by you guys and access to my Discord server community of fellow creatives. You can access that through YouTube memberships, Patreon, or Substack. Plenty of options. I also recommend just joining the Substack anyway, because I also do free emails regularly, just reminding you what videos are up, what I've been working on, chit-chatting about various stuff. If you'd like to read any of my books, the ones I always recommend are my Hidden Lands books. Those are the books of my heart, but I have a lot of books. You can find them all in the link in the description. I publish every Sunday and sometimes on Wednesdays. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And a special thank you to all my members for supporting this channel. And I'll see you next time. Bye!